Hello, and welcome to the Ask Ezra podcast, real people with intimacy challenges and real intimacy coaching. I'm Sir Ezra Algos, intimacy coach at askezra.info. If this is your first episode, you might be asking yourself, what is intimacy coaching? One definition is that an intimacy coach helps people feel safer, closer, and more connected to their lovers, friends, and even themselves. It is my goal to help people become closer to the people that they care about. So join me for this session already in progress. You sent me a list of questions and I'd love to go through it. I'm just going to start at the top. You asked me what the difference between like hierarchy in polyamory versus relationship anarchy.
Yeah. So this is something I'm super interested in because I don't have many people in my life who are polyamorous and practice that. I'm myself in a non-monogamous relationship, but I have my primary partner, and that's important to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really fascinated by all of this.
Sure. And I think there's kind of two modalities of hierarchy. There's like prescriptive, and then there's just like functional, right? So I'm polyamorous also, and I always wrestle with this idea in my head, like, am I hierarchical or am I, anarchistic? How do I really feel? So I wrestle with that myself, and so I don't want to make value judgments. I don't want to say like one's better than the other, but so with hierarchy, there is the one where people sort of have decided like, okay, we're going to be primaries and everybody else is going to be secondary, or, everybody else is going to fall somewhere on this scale of importance, right? So that is where you have, it's prescriptive because you have chosen to make that distinction, right? And then there's like functional where, for example, my partner helps me parent, right? My partner lives with me. My partner, we work together. So there's just by sheer virtue of our relationship, she's going to be coming first because of that,
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And in my heart, like, so she is my wife. I've married her last year. And, but I also sort of feel like if somebody could earn that position, they could be on the same level as her.
Okay.
Right. It seems to be, that seems to be a proposition that's maybe more difficult than it sounds because people feel like this competitive thing, but it's absolutely not. Like, my partner wants me to have partners. My partner, like, she's like, you're kidding me? Somebody else to like help out around the house? Abso-fucking-lutely. Right.
Yeah.
But then there's also like dominant submissive hierarchies as well. So I run a household, which is like, it's almost like I've made a corporation out of my living, like I've got this, like, we take minutes, we do, we have procedures, we have different documents that basically like express where we want to be and how we want to live. And in my house, there's like an application process. So on top of, like, if somebody came in and was like, I don't really have the same values as you, but I love you and, want to be with you. And like, I could dig that, like, I'm not going to say flat out that you have to like be part of my mission to be part of my life. Right. But if somebody wants to be part of the house, there's this like whole application process. So there's like 6 months of consideration, at least 6 months, followed by 6 months of training. And so it's a minimum of 1 year to be like, a full member of the house. Right. And there's all procedures and everything. And then you could be a house submissive or house dominant. You don't get to be like, my partner's a switch, but she's a house dominant because that is how she feels that she wants to be in the house. So if, for example, you wanted to be part of my house, then you'd have to sort of decide, do you want to be a house bottom or do you want to be a house top? Or I should say dom and sub, because it's not just top and bottom. Um, so that's complicated, right? It adds a whole other level of hierarchy to it, right? Because if you're just applying to the house, you don't have rights. You don't get to vote on house matters.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting because actually I just thought my next question was going to be about like relationship contracts.
Mm-hmm.
But what you just explained is so much more in depth than that.
Yeah, no, and I
But
saw on your list you had something about like how often do you come back to it, and
yeah.
um, it's good to have to like decide ahead of time like how often you're going to come back to it. And I have a contract with my current partner, and it's really an agreement. A contract is misleading because it's not legally binding.
Yeah, of course.
But we have scheduled to check in every 6 months, and we're it may be we maybe not be able to like sustain this if we had more parts to the puzzle, but currently like we can have a rule that we're like, hey, this isn't really working, like let's do it this way, right? And then it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily make it onto that sheet right away, but
Mm-hmm.
we start from a point of total agreement.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm just thinking, do you find like having all these very explicit agreements, like does it ever get to be a headache or do you find it actually liberating?
Totally liberating. Yeah. Totally
Yeah.
liberating. What the headache for me is the power struggle, the sort of organic power struggle of like, what am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? I don't want any of that because my whole childhood was a fucking power struggle. So fuck that.
Mm.
Fuck that noise.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because when you go to establish an agreement, a lot of people will object to the amount of power that you engage in, right? Like you have to be vulnerable to set up a contract, to have like how long are you planning on sticking around? The people be like, oh well, we'll see. It's like, no, like tell me your plans. Tell me your intentions. If they're different down the road, then they're different down the road. But let's have that honest conversation now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hmm.
How do I talk to my monogamous friends about my relationship? I just like overshare 100%. That's how I do that. And then they either stick around or they stop listening. I had to stop sharing with my old friends because they couldn't handle the jealousy. They couldn't handle, like most people don't want to hear about like a pyramid made out of scantily clad women that you get to sit on top of. Most people don't want to hear about that. They're like, what? What? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Okay.
I would imagine that's really difficult to hear.
No, so let's go tit for tat. I'm going to start right now because you basically asked me 2 or 3 questions. So,
First.
Caroline, what is working for you in your sex life, and what is maybe a challenge for you in your sex life?
Well, so I have not been practicing non-monogamy for very long. It's something I've always understood and related to, but in practice in my life, it's a very new thing. So right now, what my partner and I are navigating is like where jealousy and challenges come up for each of us, and it's in totally different ways,
Mm-hmm.
which is great because we get to have all these in-depth conversations and always come back stronger in the end. But it's just a different like surprising ways that we're each triggered. Like, oh, okay, I said this to make you feel better. That clearly didn't work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we're just learning about like the challenges that each of us carries with us because of our own upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I think, what would be one challenge just in my relationship. But actually a challenge for me, just personally, is exploring my own sexuality, because I mean, I this is even funny for me to talk about. Like, technically speaking, I am bisexual slash pansexual, but I have
Mm-hmm.
barely even explored that, and I find it really difficult, as I think a lot of women do, to figure out, how do I hit on women? Like, how do I even do that? It's
You
totally
just
foreign to me.
fucking do it. You just do it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
No, I'm not trying to minimize
scary.
your struggle. But I
It's
want you to realize
scary.
it's scary for everybody. It's hard for everybody. It's a real moment of vulnerability. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
so,
It's I'm not used to like having to do the initiating and all of that, so it's just like totally
well,
different perspective.
yeah, and you could always not, right? You could always just let guys hit on you and not even bother exploring, right? That's your privilege.
That's that's not, yeah, that is my privilege, but it's not what I want.
Yeah, no, I hear you and I believe in you. I know you're going to get it. Um, and honestly, you have a slightly smaller challenge. It is still like seemingly insurmountable, right? So I get it. It feels like really intimidating, but it's actually going to be less of a technical challenge than like being a man hitting on a woman, because there's all these defenses built in to be like, you have to get past these defenses, and you'll find you're actually going to have a lot fewer defenses in front of you with women. Women will be more complimented, and you might make a friend even if you don't get a partner out of it,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Whereas with especially with like men hitting on men, I deal a lot with men who have resistance to approaching other men because there is potential mortal danger, right?
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
and I don't. That's you don't have to deal with that. So that's yay, you got another win, right? But okay, so
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to physically push yourself to be like, you're too close to not talk to this person now, right? And then whatever you say, it's better than nothing. I would say a bad impression is better than no impression, right? Um,
It's true.
and the other thing that we can
Yeah.
do is we can soften the blow of rejection, right? Because that's the tough part. The fear is about like dealing with rejection, right? It's tough, it's
Hmm.
hard, and especially some of us have not always felt amazing about ourselves, and so it can be a trigger, right? um,
Mm.
so so we can be experts at being rejected. I did this today with a coaching customer, so
Yeah,
we're gonna
I
have a
love
little bit
I
of
love that
fun.
reframe.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so let's do it. Let's be good at rejecting. So I'm going to make some indecent proposal, and you're going to tell me no, and I'm going
Hmm.
to do a good job of that.
Okay.
Right. Caroline, I love what we're doing today. I love this work we're doing. Yeah, I think it would be even better, it'd be even more authentic if we were just both naked. What do you say?
No, I'm not comfortable with that today. That is gonna have to draw a boundary there.
Okay, awesome. So back to our question set, right? Okay. So I did two
Yeah.
things, right? I accepted that rejection, and then I moved
Hmm.
on,
Yeah.
right? Or the other thing I might do to add in
Yeah.
there is to say, hey, I appreciate that. And I really like the coaching session that we're having right now. So let's keep going. And by the way, I don't do nude coaching. So that was out of, that's not part of the package for anybody who's listening.
Yeah.
That's a totally different service. This is the wrong door. You gotta go to the next door across the hall. Um, okay, so yeah, three things, right? Accept it verbally, right?
Mm.
Um, maybe remind the person that you're still valuing the relationship you do have, right? And then
Mhm.
third, move on, right? So that could be like you could be like cuddling and you want to like touch somebody in a different way, and they say,
Mhm.
I don't really want to do that, and you say, oh, I really want to keep cuddling, right? Because in our brains sometimes we can feel like everything leading up to this point has been a ploy to get to that step that they don't want to take, right? And you want to reassure them that the step that you were on already is nice and you want to be there. Right.
Yeah.
So if I was hitting on a friend, I'd say, oh, well, I really value your friendship and, I don't want to mess that up. So let's go see what Dave's doing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
now it's your turn. Now you got to be rejected. Are you ready for this?
I gotta think of something. An indecent proposal.
I guarantee I'll say no, so you don't have to worry about accidentally getting me to say yes. Even if it's something I want to do.
Let's see. You know what, Ezra? I totally understand that you're very into, your dominant side, but I think really deep down you want to be a submissive, and that you want to be a sub for me.
Yeah, well, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. I don't agree. So I'm gonna say absolutely not, never.
Okay. All right, that's cool. I just thought I'd throw it out. Totally love you for who you are. So we can just continue that way.
Awesome. Yeah. And the other thing too is we got to remember it is never about us when we get rejected. Right. And it's one thing to like hear it and to say it maybe, but it's another thing to like feel it. It really isn't about you because if they knew, they'd probably say yes. If they knew you, right? Especially the proposition like, hey, do you want to get to know me? Right? That one's definitely not about you because they don't know you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you have no idea what's going on.
I try to tell myself.
Yeah. Well, you have, you literally have no idea.
All the time. It can't be. Yeah, it can't be personal if they don't know you personally.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't know who you are. And so I understand that feeling of like, oof, I've personally been rejected. Right. It happens to me a lot in business because I am my business. Right. So when somebody's like, no, I don't want coaching. I don't want you coaching me. Like it's still not about me. And if I'm afraid of that, then I'm going to miss out because, and you can be silly. You can be silly. You can be like, hey, nice shoes, want a scissor. Like it's still better than nothing. Right.
I think that works a lot better for me.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like more like my personality, just like totally ridiculous. Like, okay, whatever. Like, great shoes anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and like, so you don't want to be like stone cold because you got this wonderful smile. And if you make yourself laugh, then you'll probably make them laugh. And before you know it, their panties just come right off. It's the only angle I've got is humor. So.
I love that. I'm gonna save that line.
I don't feel like I can answer this one question of like, how has my dynamic affected my relationship? Because I established the dynamic first. Yeah, that happened right away. In fact, sometimes in BDSM, we can compartmentalize, really well. And I even was like, it is more important to me that you be my submissive than it is that you be my girlfriend. And so if the two together become too much, then that's where I'm going to lean. Right. And thankfully, it wasn't too much and we're still together and she's still my girlfriend and my wife and my slave, let's see. Okay. Let's talk about gender. Right. So, so the question is because Caroline happens to know that I'm gender fluid, or I would say gender queer, right? Because I feel I feel like a static 80-20, 70-30, like masculine, feminine energy, right? So mostly masculine. Although I will say that since I've been exploring this, I sort of thought that my masculinity was going to wane to like make room for my femininity, and it absolutely hasn't. It's been like in addition to. It's like a whole other power bar on the video games. If you imagine your life as a video game, it's a whole new bar of mana. So, but
Okay. It's
so
good
yeah.
to know too the difference between genderqueer and gender fluid.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, some like gender fluid usually describes people who are like some days they feel more male and some days they feel more female. Um, but yeah, so it's interesting to me. Um, it isn't very socially acceptable for a man to be feminine, right?
Mm.
Um, so I would say there's like two terms that we tend to use in BDSM. Um, one is like sissy, right? And that describes a feminine man. And the other might be, um, I think mask is more socially appropriate, but people may be more familiar with like butch, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to talk about a woman having, being more masculine and referring to them as butch. I know that tends to be accepted in the lesbian community, but in the BDSM we tend to be like hypersensitive. So we go for like mask, like oh she's more mask, right? Meaning masculine. But that's not a put
Okay.
down, right? Like butch is not necessarily a put down. I mean, sometimes it is, I suppose, but
Mm.
almost all the time, like sissy is a put down. It's belittling, it's
Yeah.
demeaning, right? And I don't fit into that because I don't enjoy being emasculated. I don't enjoy being, uh, degraded or humiliated, right? So
Mm.
that doesn't suit me at all. And so for
Mm.
most people, they just don't get it. Most people just it doesn't register for most people. For partners, I feel like it's all been completely well received. It's all been very much accepted, and
Mm.
it has allowed me to have more nurturing dominant energy. It has given me a chance to be more like accepting and like warm and welcoming and um yeah, yeah, much. I have some, I would say I'm like 70% daddy dom, 30% mommy dom, and those are very different things. Um,
Yeah, that's great.
but it's also funny because I think there's this expectation of 100% masculinity or even hyper masculinity, right? And so they expect me to be
Mm.
totally hard, totally, demanding, totally, um, totally stern. And then when I go like, are you okay? How is this working for you? What do you need to be
Mm.
different? And then they might get caught off guard and be like, I want you to be just hard. So sometimes it gets in the way for some people because they have this false expectation that I should be something I'm not. But yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
but with my partners, the right partners, it's all accepted. So,
So there definitely is like a misunderstanding and an
hmm,
expectation that you face.
yeah, yeah, it does happen, but you know, I deal with it. Hey, everybody, it's Ezra. And wow, isn't that exciting? Wouldn't you like to be the next guest on our show? Well, you can. Just email askezra8@gmail.com. And hey, if being on the show is too much and you'd just like to get some private intimacy coaching, that's available too. Now back to our show. Okay, your turn. Um,
um,
So you answered what was a challenge for you, but you didn't answer what's working for you. What in your sex life is like really working? What are you like? Fucking yes.
hmm. It's so my partner, like the first time that we were intimate with each other, it was just like so unlike anything else we'd either like that either of us had ever experienced. And we were just trying to figure out like what is going on, like what is it, like why do we have this amazing connection, where did it come from? And what we came up with was radical vulnerability, acceptance, and celebration. And it just it really changed my perspective on like what great sex is and can be. um and I don't know, it's just like we're so trusting of the other to fully accept us. just as we are. And so we're just so, so open with each other, which, you know, I'm like totally able to just not be in my head at all and be fully in my body. And I don't think I'd ever experienced that before with anyone else. I think that's really what it is. And like I have like very submissive energy, and that's something I'm still kind of playing with and wanting to push the limits of more and more. And he just really gets it. Like what I need from that kind of dominant partner. And I just have a lot of trust in him, because I really like feeling taken care of. And like I love like a stern, kind of authoritative, almost parental tone. But then like I want to also feel like so special and just precious. And those are like, I very recently have like been able to define, okay, these are the terms, like this is how I explain it, this is what like really works for me. So I'm looking forward to just getting deeper into that and seeing what else I want to feel.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Within that dynamic.
Yeah, great. I'm
Hey,
happy for
there's
you.
so much more too to experience.
There is. There's always so much more. Yeah, if anybody's bored with sex, like that's a problem. It's not the sex that's the problem. It's there's something blocking your way.
Oh, I also was gonna say, when you're talking about like different terms for specific gender expressions, I heard this term from somebody in my small group brought it up, STEM, which is feminine stud, which I think is just incredible. Absolutely brilliant, amazing. And
yeah,
that is totally how I want to identify and how I feel a lot of the time, because you're talking about like, I even walk different depending on what I'm wearing and how I'm presenting. And I really like, wearing like really baggy kind of like masculine clothes, but still like, wearing makeup and like feeling pretty and feminine, like in certain other aspects. So STEM, feminine stud.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that term.
Really excited about it.
Stud tends to be like an acceptable term as well in some communities. So, let's see. So I have your list of questions, unless all of a sudden something is burning in your brain that you want to ask.
You can keep moving through and I'll let you know.
Yeah. So, so advice for entering the BDSM community. That one can be really challenging based on geographics, right? Because it's not the same everywhere, right? And I think as we were talking about in our last time we talked, there are some places where it's still really dangerous to be kinky. So, the advice that I can give is specific to big cities or some city, right? So FetLife is a great resource for finding events. FetLife can be a creepy place, unfortunately. And so, especially for feminine presenting individuals, I would say you may want to start with a blank profile. But you can take that blank profile and then you can identify events that are happening in your city. I would say start with a munch, start with like one of these non-party events that are social, maybe a game night, because that's a way like smaller pressure, much less pressure to interface with people, because nobody's going to ask you to play at the Dave and Buster's, right? Nobody's going to ask you to yeah. Hold on just 1 second. Thank you. The joys of recording in a dungeon. So there's going to be much less pressure to like engage right away, because these are going to be held at a like a restaurant or a bar or at a park. It's going to be a public place. So it's a great way to make friends and like get connections, so that when you then go see a party that is listed, you maybe know somebody who's going.
Yeah.
And again, I would say, like, especially for people who are feminine or feel otherwise vulnerable, trans folks and whatnot, go with a partner, go with a buddy, because that's
Mm-hmm.
going to help you feel more safe, and it's going to help you be more safe, right? Because you don't necessarily know what you're walking into. Um, but you can always message the organizer, right? Those people are going to be responsive and, from my experience, really inviting. And so if you're like, really, if you can't get a buddy to go with you and you're like terrified, be like, hey, am I welcome at this? Maybe you don't know if, your kind of person is welcome, but that organizer is going to tell you. And if
Mm.
it got a brain in their head, they'll say, yes, please come. I will introduce myself as soon as you get
Yeah.
here, and you'll know me, so you don't know nobody.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That, or, you get your secret membership and you get your cloak and you get your dagger. I'm just kidding. That's all silly.
Yeah, I was just thinking I would feel so welcome and so much better if you were the organizer or something and were there to greet
I'm
me and
organizing
welcome
the
me.
event tonight. You're
Oh.
just like 2,000 miles off.
Oh,
You
tragic.
could come to the cherry auction. It's going to be very gay because we're auctioning off all this leather and latex. So,
Oh, that sounds so
yeah,
fun.
indeed. I'm expecting to be hit on. So, and then I would say in some places there are like, there's nothing. Some places there's absolutely nothing. And in that case, you want to sort of look for, um, like, coincidental interests. And there's probably a better word for
Mm.
that. But like half the people who are into Dungeons and Dragons are kinky. Like half the people who live action role play are kinky, right? Um, so yeah, and if you can't find anybody, you're just working on your role playing skills, and that's good.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's so great. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Mm.
Now, my question. So, you mentioned wanting to get into the BDSM community, or at least learn more about it. Um, what
Mm.
do you want out of it? What is it that you're hoping that community can provide for you?
Mm. I mean, there's just so many experiences that I'm really interested in that I haven't had yet. Like, I want to experience play parties. I want to learn about things like shibari. I want to just learn from, other people who are more experienced in their lifestyle, and people that have been in it for years, and just have friends like with similar interests to that. Because I just don't have many. And so, yeah, always trying to grow my network, have more
Mm-hmm.
friends.
I hear the
Yeah.
Seattle, or is it, no, I'm sorry, the Portland, Oregon Munch happens every Wednesday, and you can attend it
Mm.
virtually. So you may not be able to have
A
friends locally,
munch?
but you can certainly have friends. Yeah. So, okay. So I mentioned this before, right? A munch is a
Right.
non-party kinky event. So,
Okay.
um,
So it's just like the general term.
yeah. So it's, they call it a munch because you usually get together and have some food, right? Um,
Okay.
but this is going to, they're like, there might be a party where they're like, oh, you have to come to our munch first, and it's at 6 p.m. and
Mm.
then the party's at 9, but you can't come to the party unless you've come to the munch first, right? And so it's a way of sort
Oh.
of like vetting people, right, in some instances,
Mm.
but it's also a way to network and build community, because that's really what we need when we're talking about these sexual minority communities. Is we really need,
Mm.
we need a network, we need a support group.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in relation to that, like, do you have like favorite um like educators or sites and pages
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
like recommend to people?
Yeah, Midori is one of my favorite educators. Um, she wrote the foreword to my book, which I'm very honored to do, to
Mm.
have as my as in my book. She also I interviewed her doing my research for my book, and so she's two of the interludes. So two of her personal stories of how to mind fuck people were
Mm.
included. And dare I say it, she really inspired me to become an educator, um, because there's almost nobody that makes a living like teaching kink, right? But Midori probably is the closest because she's also a visual artist, and I mean,
Mm.
she's surviving. She's making it, and she writes a lot of books, and she teaches a lot of classes, and she makes her art. And I think like how better way to live your life, right? And so she's like my role model. Um,
Yeah.
I also really like Danorama, and Danorama was the founder of Two Naughty Boys, and also was I can't remember uh, his title exactly. I think he was like director of Kink University, which was a
Mhm.
kink.com thing. Um, but yeah, no, I might have met a party like years ago and I was like starstruck because I've like seen his porn, and like he did like quick like 2 minute instructions, like you can use a pillowcase for some bondage, like super quick.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that's really cool, I'd love to do that. um
Yeah.
and I talk to him all the time. He teaches at my course series, and he actually studied interrogation in college, right? And so he's like a police. He trains the police how to interrogate, and he'll also have like really filthy, kinky interrogations. So he's fucking awesome. Yeah, he's fucking awesome.
Oh my gosh.
He'd probably like you too. If you're a star fucker.
Oh
that
my
was
god.
that wasn't a no, Caroline. I don't know. I'm not gonna speak for Dan. I don't know exactly what Dan wants, but um I know Dan likes latex, so he would slap you in some latex, and it'd be a pretty good lure. Um yeah. Okay. So let's see. My question for you. Oh, we just did one for you, right? Or no, you just asked me a question. So one more question. Um yeah, so Caroline, if we were to work on like a monthly coaching basis, what would be your number one goal?
Mm. My number one goal. I think maybe this is kind of a generic thing, but to get more comfortable with like putting myself out there, to meet like the kinds of people that I want to meet and to have the kind of experiences that I want to have. Because I do get intimidated a lot of the time. And I think I, in the past, have kind of talked myself out of things that could have been really fun. And yeah, yeah. But I think just like gaining confidence and yeah, gaining
Yeah.
confidence in myself to make these things happen.
hmm Don't diminish that. That's a huge challenge, and it makes a lot of sense. There's huge
Mm-hmm.
gains to be won from developing that. So
Mm.
yeah, the woman of your dreams could walk right past you, and if you don't say anything, then it's gone, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to help you with that if that was something you'd want to work on. Okay, this last one is it feels like a softball, but I'm gonna do it. So what are some of the ways that BDSM has changed or enhanced your daily interactions with the world?
Yeah, with
Um,
the non-kink world.
yeah, no, I fucking love this question because I'm not like Sir Ezra from like 9 p.m. to midnight. I'm Sir Ezra all the time, right? I have like an integrated personality. Um, and there was a time when I felt like disempowered and underfoot. There was a
Mm.
time when my my general attitude was like the system's rigged, it can't work. Um, I'm never gonna feel the way I want to feel. I'm never gonna have the partner I want to have. Right. Um,
Mm.
there was a time when like that was the pervasive attitude that I had. Um, and it still creeps in every once in a while, but like not nearly like it used to. So I've been able to combat my negative self-talk. I've been able to change my beliefs to better suit the life that I'd like to live. I've been able to find uh, a caring, patient, compassionate partner that supports me and is also like really nasty and loves to do all kinds of gross stuff in bed. It's just like, yeah, it's awesome. It's really fantastic. And, and she also is like filled with compersion, right? That's that like almost the opposite feeling of jealousy, right? And it's like when you just love to have your other partner like having sex and having fun with other people, right? I mean, she just like
Yeah.
she'll sit in a room with me and I'm like fucking a partner and she'll just be like just drinking it in. And that's like
Mhm.
so wonderful because I still suffer from like monogamous guilt, which is,
Yeah.
like that feeling that you get after you're no longer monogamous or you never were, but you realized it finally, but the all of this indoctrination that makes you feel like you're a bad person for being polyamorous. And she just washes that away. She's a cool drink of water on a hot day. Um,
Mm.
and she helps me parent and she helps me live the life I want to live. And um, yeah, and I get to take my badass can do anything persona fucking everywhere, right? I take it into the bank, right? Where we have like
Yeah.
all of this fucking institutional power to fuck you, right? And I'm like, whatever. You can't even get this dick. And I'm in the bank, right? You wish.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the world is my
That is
oyster. I'm an
beautiful.
author, right? I'm dyslexic. Like, why should I write a book? Because I fucking did the work, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to do the work without, like, finding this community, finding this family, finding this power within myself. I have an ever overflowing wellspring of power, right? So I answered the shit out of that question.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
I'm fired up. That was inspirational.
yeah.
That was really beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
I'm
Yeah,
so glad that I get to know you and to, yeah, to just bask in it. Probably, hopefully absorb some of that.
yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to shine on you. You shine on me too here, Caroline. There's one more question on the list here. And I think I'm gonna try to like rephrase it a little bit just to make it a little cleaner, but it's
Sure.
sort of like when people come to you, are there like patterns that maybe they don't even recognize, right?
Right.
And absolutely, like, I get a lot of clients who come to me and are like, I can't get my man to do this to me.
Mm.
And that's entitlement because nobody
Yeah.
has to do anything to you, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it's also like I so I'm obviously polyamorous. We've been talking about this. I get a lot of people who are monogamous who shouldn't be, right? Who are
Mm.
like asking just too much of one partner or have a partner that they
Mhm.
want to keep, but it's just not the right one. I also get a lot of people who don't realize they're in abusive relationships, which is really hard. It's tough
Yeah.
because BDSM can conceal it. BDSM can give us like ways in which punishment feels appropriate, right? And there's ways that it is appropriate. Punishment can be an appropriate way to help, modify behavior. Um, It's why, I mean, it's why you get late fees, right? Late fees work. You pay your bills because you don't want the late fees. That's punishment. Um, but there's a lot of people who like have venom and don't have the care to handle it and end up hurting their partners. Um, and I see it equally. You know, you might think that it's all the doms that are being abusive, but there's a lot of abusive submissives out there, where like their partner has not consented to like table turning, and then they'll turn the tables. That's not consensual. That's a consent violation,
Mm.
um and sometimes you can convert them, sometimes you can't. Sometimes they just want a band-aid to fix the relationship that's broken, and I'm not handing out band-aids. I'm handing out truth.
Yeah.
um
You got some great one-liners.
yeah. Thanks for watching the Ask Ezra podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with your friends on social media. If you would like to review this episode, please do so at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support the episode, go to patreon.com/askezra, and you can sign up for our mailing list at askezra8@gmail.com. Lastly, if you'd like to find out if intimacy coaching is right for you, visit askezra.info. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to tune in next time.